Now, I started recording now. Let's start our next AMA call on IDChain with our guest speaker, Mahdi, which is our own team member, core team member. Before we start, I want to introduce folks here. Adam and Philip are our co-founders, or really nice co-founders. We have Michael and Mahdi, our core developers, me and Mono, and Ashraf, and Sergey, and Ehsan, our BrightID stars and community managers. And yeah, we gather around every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time to talk about one of the projects integrated with BrightID or something that people are interested in. This time it's IDChain. And Mahdi, what is IDChain?
اول سلام میکنم و معذرت خواهی میکنم به خاطر که فکر کنم راحت تر باشه. سعی میکنم کلا فارسی صحبت بکنم که یک دست بتونیم چیز بکنیم، ترجمه بکنیم، چیز نشه.
That's fine. That's fine. So Mahdi wants to speak Farsi, and I will translate for him because he just feels more comfortable speaking Farsi. So I translate. I recommend speaking English, please, but feel free to do that. He's saying hello, and he will start talking about IDChain right now.
IDChain در واقع یه سایت چین اتریومی هست که ما برای در واقع رسیدن به کانسنسس بین نودهای برایت آیدی ازش استفاده میکنیم و روز اول راهش انداختیم.
So Ethereum IDChain is an Ethereum side chain, as Mahdi says, and we use it for reaching consensus for BrightID nodes, and that's why we created it in the first place.
اما خب ویژگی‌های مهمی داره که من فکر می‌کنم از بقیه سایت چین‌هایی که الان توی اکوسیستم اثریوم هستن متمایز می‌کنه.
So IDChain has lots of exciting features which makes it different from other layer 2 chains on Ethereum. And yeah, let's talk about some of these features.
یکی از اونها اینه که در واقع گزفی این شبکه به صورت رایگان توزیع میشه بین یوزراش و در واقع بیزینس مدلش فور پرافیت نیست در واقع این سایت چین.
So the first thing we want to mention, or the first feature we want to mention about IDChain, is the fact that the gas fee is distributed among users for free, and this makes it one of the rare layer 2 chains which has a non-for-profit business model.
فکر می‌کنم که از مهمترین دیگه فیچراش این هست که امنیتش تابعی از در واقع سایز بازارش نیست و با کمک برایت آیدی ولیدیتوراش به صورت دموکراتیک انتخاب میشن و این باعث میشه که امنیتش تابعی از چیز باشه، به قولن گسترش و قدرتی که برایت آیدی ایجاد میکنه باشه، نه تابعی از سایز مارکتش.
Oh, that was a lot. So Mahdi says on IDChain, the security is not based on the market size, which makes it really different from other layer 2s. Our validators on IDChain are selected democratically by the users, and this way the security of IDChain is more based on the security of BrightID and how successful BrightID is with providing unique accounts for the users.
نکته مهمی بود که فکر کنم من می‌خواستم باهاش شروع کنم. IDChain در واقع ایده آدم بود. فکر می‌کنم خیلی خوب باشه اگر آدم هم کمک بکنه فیچرهای مهمی که به ذهنشون میرسه یا حالا اگه نکته دیگه دارن اضافه کنه.
So Mahdi says these are the main features that he wanted to talk about and he wanted to mention, but as he says, The ID chain was the idea that Adam had in the first place. And now he wants Adam to talk about the features that he might find exciting and worth mentioning about ID chain.
Okay, sure. I think the most exciting thing is like Mahdi said, is how consensus is reached on IDChain. We needed we actually had pretty simple requirements for what we needed for reaching consensus for BrightID. We just needed we don't need we don't have all the requirements. We're not dealing with money. We don't have all the requirements that, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum have for their consensus. It doesn't have to be that complicated. We just needed something that could make sure that they agree on the timing of certain operations. But our developers were more familiar with blockchain than they were other consensus protocols. So we felt like it would be easier to ramp up with one of those than something else. So we started using Rinkeby, which is an Ethereum testnet, and it worked fine until it didn't. Until we realized, okay, well, this is actually a testnet, and we want BrightID to. We're out of beta now. This is a product that we need to that needs to be robust and stay up. So we can't really run it on a testnet. What else is out there? And we looked at. So we looked at what else was out there. We looked at Matic. We looked at IDChain because we love IDChain. So we looked at that. And we really wanted to stick with, there were a couple things that we wanted to stick with that those didn't have, which are kind of some of the core principles of BrightID. So really we made our choice based on philosophy and also, what was going to be pretty easy to maintain. But so what we did was we took the same, basically the same code that is used to run the Rinkeby test network, which we are already using. It uses a proof of authority consensus protocol called Click, and so we were already familiar with using it, and so we just launched a new chain that was a lot like Rinkeby, but we said, okay, this one's not going to be for testing. This is going to be for production use of BrightID. But the philosophical points where we differ from some of the other chains that also have low gas fees are we want to promote equality. We want to, that's what BrightID is all about. We want, it's a public good. We want that public good to be available to everyone. So we thought, okay, how can we use an Ethereum-based network or chain to be as egalitarian as possible and make it so that everyone has free access, and it just becomes like a basic thing that anyone can do. And using BrightID, we can do something like that. We can say, okay, if you're BrightID verified, you get to have as many gas tokens as you need for normal usage. We can't just give away unlimited gas tokens because there's that would open the network up to spam attacks. But we can give the average user what they need for average use, and we can do that for free without having people game the system because we use BrightID as a verification when we're giving out those gas tokens. So I can share my screen and show how that works. Let me show my, I was just looking at MetaMask, and I go to Can everybody see my screen? Can you see it? Give a thumbs up.
Adam, the thing is that when you share your screen, I think your bandwidth is now limited, and your audio, your voice is getting a lot of disconnections.
Okay. Okay, yeah. This might be just an underpowered laptop that I'm on. I will show. What I'll do is I'll show for a second, and then I'll go back just to speaking. But I just want to show for 1 second that there's a website called. Let's see, what is it? I'm gonna stop sharing because it's a problem. Maybe I'll let Mahdi do it when I go back to him, because that I think it was, like you said, caused some bandwidth problems to share my screen. So, but what I wanted to show was IDChain 1. You go to IDChain.1. You see the steps you take. You want to show that, Mahdi? Show IDChain.1/begin. Yes.
I can hear. Well, maybe
Can you guys still
have your video?
There are lots of disconnections.
Can you guys
talking for some reason?
Oh, okay. Okay, let me try to shut this down. Let me just shut everything down. Is it working better now?
Yes, it is.
No,
I think so.
Okay, better now.
Much better.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so hopefully someone else can share their screen and look at IDChain.1/begin. Maybe Mahdi can do that since he's the co-presenter today. Yeah.
I think.
So are you able to present while I talk, and maybe I can talk through it? Is that possible that you can show?
Sure.
Can you present while I
Let
still
me
talk?
share my screen.
So go to
and
sure.
You could talk over it and let me know what I should do, and I'll follow your lead.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, so we're at IDChain.1/begin, and you can see that the first thing it wants you to do is install BrightID, and this is because that's how it makes sure that you get your fair share of gas tokens and not more than your fair share. You get verified by BrightID, and then, like all BrightID apps, you will scan a code or paste the code, and that will link your BrightID. It's really easy to do. In this case, it's an Ethereum address. So, and the reason why it's an Ethereum address is because, like we said, IDChain is an Ethereum compatible blockchain. And so when you can use the same Ethereum address and the same wallet that you use for mainnet Ethereum with IDChain. So you can use your existing Ethereum wallet and address, and then it'll create this QR code. You scan that with your BrightID application, just like you would scan another person when you're making a connection. You scan that, and then as soon as you scan it, it pops up a code that says, would you like to link IDChain to your BrightID? And you say yes. And then after you do that, you'll notice you'll have to set up a wallet. You'll set up a new network in your MetaMask wallet. And once you do that, it shows you what to enter for the different, you can copy paste those, but it shows you what to enter for setting up a new network in your MetaMask wallet. Once you set up that new network, you go there and you will find that because you went through this process, you now have, currently it's 10 ED, but 10 ED is the gas token in the network. And that's what we as the validators, the current elected validators, think that is like a normal supply for normal use that anyone can get. And if you need more, you can go to Uniswap. Yeah, so Pascal showing right now how he set up his IDChain. So could you go to, just so they can see a little better, could you go and stay there in that tab, go back to the MetaMask, please? Go back to MetaMask, your MetaMask tab that you had open.
Can you see
the other tab to
the
right of that
MetaMask
one.
page?
Yes. Yeah, we can see MetaMask. Stay on MetaMask. Don't go back. Okay. Go to click on your icon in the upper right and go to networks. Yeah.
You mean
should be
here?
able to click there. Scroll down and go to yes, and go to IDChain. Yeah, click on.
That's what I did. Yeah,
IDChain.
I was on the mainnet and then I moved to IDChain.
Oh no. Sorry. That right. That's not. Yes, that's. But actually, go under your settings. So click on the your icon again and scroll down and go to settings. I think it's your icon actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Scroll down, go to settings. Yes, go to settings, and now go to networks. See on the left side, networks. And this is where you would go to enter in that information for the first time if you're adding IDChain. And you enter your network name, the RPC URL. This is all on the IDChain 1 begin. It has the things that you need to paste in here. And then once you do that, then you hit OK, and it'll create that network for you. And now you can switch between networks from MetaMask. You can switch between mainnet and Ethereum. And we are on, mainnet and IDChain. We're on IDChain right now. So let's go to something that uses IDChain. Let's go to uniswap.idchain.1. And let's check out uniswap .idchain.1. Yeah, there you go. And let's see what's going on there. So let's say that, actually, let's go to open up another tab. This is interesting, but open up another tab, and let's go to Uniswap-info. So Uniswap-info, so that we can see some statistics. Oh, -info, not /info. Uniswap-info. Nope, not that one. We'll get it. Uniswap-info. So there you go. .idchain.1. Yeah. .idchain.1.
That one, right?
Yep. Yeah, there you go. You got it. Yep, that's the right one. Okay. So if we go here, we can see what's going on with. So scroll down a little bit more. Let's go to top pairs. Okay, go to Weedy Die. So Weedy is wrapped ED. So just like you have wrapped Ether, so this Uniswap will automatically wrap and unwrap your ED. Remember, ED are the gas tokens. So if for some reason, you feel like the 10 ED tokens you got was too many and you're never going to use them all, you could come here and sell them. You could also, if you feel like it's not enough, which is the case with me, the 10 ED was not enough for me. So I came here and I bought some. And so this is just, something you can do on Uniswap. There's not a whole lot of liquidity, but we don't need a whole lot of liquidity for this. And so, yeah, this is just an example of something you can do on the IDChain network. And let's show something else that we can do. Oh, and one of the nice things about this is everything is so much cheaper. Like we said, you get enough gas to last you, a typical user, their lifetime. So you do all this stuff for free. You don't have to pay those high gas costs. So let's go to, let's open up a new one. Let's go to aragon.idchain.1 and check out some Aragon DAOs. I think right now, someone was saying that it costs like $2,000 to create a DAO.
Really? Right now it's 2,000?
Something like that, something ridiculous. So it's basically free here. So you'll need to, so if you're doing something, especially if you're doing something that's kind of just governance related, this makes a lot of sense to make your Aragon DAO on IDChain. If you need the security of moving a lot of funds, I would say don't use IDChain yet. It's not ready for that. We need to add more. We need to add more to our democratic process, to our governance process with the validators. We need to have more participation. There's just not enough right now. We just have a few validators, so you can't really consider it very democratic yet. So yeah, but if you're mostly just you know, making decisions and executing smart contracts that aren't moving a lot of money, and this is, or if you understand bridges well enough to understand how our arbitrary message bridge works, and you want to make decisions and then have those decisions be bridged over to call a smart contract on mainnet. If you know how that works, then this is great for you. And setting up DAOs. We have several DAOs for our organization here. And we also have, let's check out something else while this is loaded. Okay, so finally loaded. Yeah, you can create, you know, there's different types. It's the same interface. It's the same interface that you're used to for Aragon. Let's go to, let's open up another one. And let's go to DAOhouse.idchain.1. DAO. Yeah, no E at the end. No E at the end. Just delete that E. Yeah, no, you had it right otherwise. Yep, s.idchain.1. Yeah, .idchain.1. Yeah, and so if you're more of if you like more of the Moloch DAOs, then we have the same interface that allows you to easily create a Moloch DAO. And let's see, I was going to see if we could maybe pull up the Whaler DAO one. I don't know if Explore goes to the right place, but try clicking Explore, see if it shows Whaler DAO. I don't know if we actually built that interface or not. Maybe we did.
Yes,
yeah, there's Whaler DAO here. Okay, so there's Whaler DAO. Yeah, you can check out Whaler DAO is the first and only Moloch DAO, Moloch V2 DAO on IDChain, but it's pretty cool. I mean, we have thousands of DAI worth of assets under management and doing good stuff. I don't know what you clicked on. Enter the DAO.
For some reason, when I click on the enter the DAO, gives me an error. This error.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe the Pokemon website is down.
I don't think so. I don't know why
Adam,
that's
would you
broken
briefly?
Maybe it got redeployed.
Yeah. Would you briefly tell us what the main difference would be between a Pokemon DAO and the Aragon? Like, what made Whaler DAO move to Pokemon rather than Aragon? But yeah, if you feel like this is not a good place to talk about that.
No, I mean Pokemon and DAO. So DAO House is a way to spin up a Moloch V2 DAO, and then Pokemon is a nice interface for people to use it. But yeah, I mean it's just whatever suits your whims. And I was just whatever your organization feels is a better structure for your DAO. But I was talking to Jack, the founder of Colony, recently. They're launching, because Colony is basically unusable on mainnet right now because of the gas fees. So they want to relaunch Colony in a way that can be on multiple chains. So we're going to use that relaunch as a way to put Colony on IDChain. So that'll be great too. So so we want to add, because BrightID is about giving everyone one vote, one voice. We're about democracy. We're about equality. It makes a lot of sense that we should offer the same sorts of things that we're using ourselves, which in our case, it's Aragon DAOs, but also by the request of Whaler DAO, we put these, we put DAO House and Pokemon on there as well. But, and we're going to put Colony on there as well. But having these ways to, you know, have democratic governance in your, decentralized governance in your organization is something that BrightID can help a lot with. So we we put all that stuff on IDChain, and it's a good place for that. IDChain is also a good place to have a new token that you want to give out fairly, distribute fairly to people. We did that with, you saw how we did that with our ED token, if you want to do if you have a token that you want to be able to distribute fairly that easily as we did our ED token, then you can launch a token on IDChain, do the same thing. So those are, I mean, those are the things that we want to support because those are the things that we care about. But it's an Ethereum blockchain, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can any software that runs on mainnet, you can deploy it and run it on IDChain. So I think what's really interesting about IDChain is the governance. We have some plans for how we want IDChain to be governed. But the main philosophical difference is we want to make sure everyone has access, which is why we have the ED faucet. That's number one. Number two is we don't want it to be, we don't want there to be the potential for profits to derail the blockchain, to get it in a point where it's no longer useful. It's possible that so you can imagine a state where yeah, I guess we can stop sharing the screen now. I don't think we're going to look at anything right now. But it's possible with blockchains, if they're to get into a state where, because of profit motivations, that they're unable to move forward anymore. They basically get stuck and they can no longer do consensus. So that's something that we want to avoid. Now there's other protocols where the profit motivation is like the driving factor. Like if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, you need miners trying to make a profit. That's how you secure the network. But when you have BrightID as a way to fight against civil attacks and to limit people to one account, you have some alternatives that don't have to use profit to secure the network. And what you gain then is you gain speed. So blocks can be created much faster and cheaper than they can in other networks. But then the security is much different. That's why I say don't like if you have a ton of money moving back and forth, IDChain isn't ready for that. The bridges are not secure enough for large amounts of funds. But if you look at Whaler DAO, they've got several thousands. I would be hesitant to have millions going through our bridges at their current state until the democracy aspect of everything has been ramped up and we have a thriving pool of validators. So maybe we can, I've been doing a lot of talking, so maybe we can let Mahdi talk some more about some ideas for governance and some of the things that we've been talking about with IDChain and how it might be governed with our validators, and both for consensus and for bridges. Is that okay, Mahdi? Do you want to talk some about that?
No, thank you. I think if we allow others to ask questions, we can guide the meeting in the way that be more helpful for attendees.
Okay, I'll just do like maybe a 2-minute synopsis of what's different about, say, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and maybe I'll mention IDChain as well, and how validation or consensus is achieved. So Bitcoin, obviously, proof of work. I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but the downsides are that it's very expensive to achieve that. Ethereum is moving to proof of stake, which is a big improvement on the expense of being able to reach consensus. So that's something that we're all looking forward to. And IDChain and IDChain and some of the test nets for Ethereum use some version of proof of authority or delegated proof of stake, which means that there has to be some elected or appointed group of people. Also, if you look at EOS, they do something similar. But so it's a way to have that same have a cheap network, fast block times, but it requires some sort of election process. And so how that's done, there's a variety of different ways that it can be done. And we are, what our goal is to make it so that everyone who is a BrightID citizen, basically, anyone who is has been verified as unique in BrightID gets to participate in this election process, and who the validators are on IDChain. So leverage the democratic aspects of BrightID in selecting the validators. But we have there's more details on how that's done. But that's one of the unique things about BrightID. And then as far as like paying the validators, there's ways to incentivize them that where it's not based on the amount of fees that they collect, but rather on it's a salary. It's based on a salary rather than so the fees in IDChain are all burned, and we feel like that's a more more fair way of doing things, so that fees can't, so that an elected group of people can't basically decide to run up the fees more than what's justified. So anyways, that's a lot of discussion, or a lot of background information, and yeah, I want to see if anyone has any questions.
I can see that Andrew asked, can anyone run a node for IDChain?
Yes, anyone can run a node for IDChain. There's a dApp node package, which makes it really easy to run a node for IDChain. And so, yes, we encourage people to run nodes. And then as far as becoming a validator, we do have an election process. So you can be proposed to join as a validator node. But the first step, which anyone is welcome to do, is to look at the dApp node package for IDChain and run an IDChain node. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You can find instructions on how to do that on our GitHub, on the IDChain GitHub, or you can look it up in the dApp node registry and look for IDChain. You'll find it. So good question. Thank you for asking it.
I'm going to ask about the bridges again.
Yeah.
On XDAI network, I'm able to move almost all my ERC20 tokens to XDAI network, play with it, send it to everyone, and then they can put it on the mainnet, and then use it on the mainnet. So the process of sending and playing with it is much cheaper than the mainnet.
Yep, exactly.
Is that possible right now on IDChain?
Yes.
Or how long are we from that place?
Yes, it is. So it's been possible for a while. One of the improvements so we follow IDChain very closely, and we love that they're working on open source software, so that when they make an improvement, we can benefit from it. One of the improvements that they recently made to what you're referring to is called the Omni Bridge, where you can you can bridge any type of token. So we just recently, like a day or two ago, upgraded our Omni bridge based on some improvements that POA. By the way, we use POA has created a lot of great software that we use. They're the creators of IDChain and the POA network. They created the block explorer that we use and the bridges that we use. So we love their open source software. And anyways, so they recently made an improvement to the software where you now, before, the validators used to have to pay gas fees every time someone bridged, used the Omni bridge, which made it really challenging to use it, because we didn't want to have to keep our validators supplied, the bridge validators supplied with Ether all the time. So that was kind of a hassle. But now they recently made a change, and we deployed it too, so that whoever does the bridging pays the fees, which just makes a lot more sense. Like you bridge, you pay the fees. So there is a fee if you'll have to pay gas fees. I was just trying to bridge some this morning, and at the current prices, it was going to be like $40 to bridge tokens onto IDChain. So that bridge is still like not super cheap. It's not outrageous, but it's not super cheap. But once you bring over a bunch of whatever asset you're bringing over, then you can, like Paslar was saying, it's so much cheaper to move money around on IDChain. It's basically free. And then when someone gets to the point that they want to bridge it back, they can do so. And it's cheaper to bridge it back, I think. But anyways, but you can, using Uniswap, you can, I mean, you can trade for the token that you want. You can do all kinds of interactions. When you get to the point where you have enough or whatever, or it's time to bridge back, then you can pay that fee to bridge it back. Have you tried XDAI recently? The fees are going to be almost the same, the mainnet fees. Have you looked at the fees for bridging back, Paslar? Have you tried to bridge any
bridging
money back?
Do you mean sending money
like bridging
from the
back to main
to XDAI, or vice versa?
The other way. The other way.
It's gonna take more gas fee to move back to mainnet than before.
No, I'm just saying that I mean, not more. Well, because the price has gone up of Ether, and right now the gas is, I don't know what to call high these days, but it feels expensive to me when I look at it. And like right now it's 73, 93, that range. So that still feels expensive to me.
Yeah.
And
compared
ETH
to the
is $1,300. So yeah, things used to be so cheap on mainnet. But yeah, using the bridge right now. So I'm just gonna, I can't share my screen, but I'm just gonna try the bridge the other way just to see what it's gonna cost to bridge it back. Let's see if I do the XDAI bridge. Where is it? There it is. So no, I think I'll use our bridge and just check. It should be the same either way though. But if I use DAI.idchain.1 and try to bridge, I'm not going to actually do it, but I'm just going to see how much it would cost to do it. So if I bridge back, let's see, I want to reverse it. Okay. So it's going to cost, let's see. Let's see. I'm going to reverse that. It's going to cost, let's see. I think this is the other way. Let's see. How much does it cost this way? From IDChain to ETH. Let's see. Transfer. Let's see. Oh yeah, got to switch networks. Yeah, I'm just curious if it's cheaper to send it back. It might be. let's see, connect wallet, transfer. Okay, it's unlocked. Let's see, transfer from IDChain to mainnet. Bridge fees 0%. Yeah, that's the bridge fees, but then there's the gas fees is what we're actually talking about. So let's see. Okay. It's actually, so yeah, it's gonna actually, it has to wait. So I can't know the answer to that right away. It's got to wait for 8 blocks to go through on mainnet before it will even tell me how much it's going to cost. So I don't know, but let's say it's similar. Do you have like a idea of how much that might cost, Mahdi, to bridge back from
من فکر می‌کنم هزینه
IDChain?
کلا مدل بریجی که پی سازی کرده به خاطر اینکه باید تمام امضاهای افرادی که روی ولیدیتور هستن رو روی مین نت بیاره اعمال بکنه، هزینه بریج بک کردن فکر می‌کنم بیشتر باشه از بردن استا رو از مین نت به آیدی چین یا هر چینی که از چیز استفاده میکنه، از بریج پی او استفاده میکنه، بریج بک کردن به مینت هزینه‌اش فکر میکنم چندین برابر باشه.
Mahdi says the way POA is designed, it wants to get the signature of all validators. So bridging back to the mainnet is always more expensive.
Okay. Yeah, because each validator has to create a transaction on mainnet. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So
Manuel says it's around $5 now. Is that right?
You said that?
Manuel.
Okay. Is that for IDChain or XIChain? I mean, it's gonna be the same for either one, but
yeah.
$5 to bridge which way? Well, that's good that it's only $5 right now. When I try to, let's see, let me see what it says for me when I try to do it. Okay, so let's see if I transfer. Okay, got to switch my wallet to mainnet. Let's see if I try to transfer to, which should be the cheaper one. Let me see what it says right now. Okay, switch wallet. Okay, connect wallet. Come on. Okay. It's saying, it's telling me it's going to be, it's telling me $43 at 83 Gwei. So that's, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier today too. So, I mean, it usually overestimates. So I don't know, maybe it'll be $30 or something, but it's still like, that's about the range that it is for 83 Gwei and $1,300 Ethereum price. So bridging is still, you know, $30, $40 on the cheap end, and then I don't know, maybe even more expensive on the other end, at least right at this exact point in time. So yeah, but the point is you bridge some funds over. This is how a lot of the side chains in layer 2 work. You bridge some funds over, you do what you need to do, and then when it comes time that you actually need to bridge the tokens back, then you pay that fee to bridge them back. So yeah, it is what it is. There's also tokens that only exist on IDChain. So if you're dealing with that, then it's obviously basically free to do everything. Kind of like so ED is an example of that. Yes, Mahdi.
یه چند نکته در مورد بریج هم خواستم اضافه کنم. یکی اینکه قبلا روی کیبیس هم اشاره کردم، با یکی از دوستان داریم بررسی میکنیم روش‌هایی رو که بشه بریج داشت از آیدی چین به مین نت و بالعکس با امنیت خیلی بالاتر از این بریجی که الان هست و با هزینه فوق‌العاده پایین‌تر.
So Mahdi says with a friend of his, he's working on defining new methods of creating bridge other than the POA bridges that would be more secure and cheaper. And he always does that. He finds something really cool, and then he says, no, that's not enough.
منطقش خیلی خیلی ساده است. منطقش شبیه چیزی است که ما برای پابلیش کردن وریفیکیشن ها به صورت دیسنترالایز روی آیدی چین استفاده میکنیم.
The logic in that bridge would be similar to what we have for the signature of the validators on IDChain in a decentralized way.
منطق اینجوری است که میتونیم تعداد نامتناهی از ولیدیتورها داشته باشیم که به عنوان سوپروایزر عمل میکنن.
We can have indefinite numbers of validators that act like supervisors.
و کنترل میکنن که اگر یک تراکنشی به اشتباه خواست بریج بشه سیستم رو متوقف بکنن.
What they do as supervisors is basically halt the transactions if they find something that is being done in a wrong way.
اما در واقع یک امضا کفایت میکنه برای چیز کردن، برای بریج کردن در واقع به سایت، به آیدی چین و همینطور برگشتنش یک تک امضا کافیه.
So this way only one signature would be enough for sending or making transactions from the mainnet to IDChain and back.
این کمک میکنه که هزینه به شدت کاهش پیدا بکنه.
This reduces the costs a lot.
و از اون طرف چون تعداد خیلی بیشتری نسبت به وضعیتی که الان پی او ای بریج داره، مثلا اونها 5 تا ولیدیتور دارن اما میتونیم 100 تا سوپروایزر داشته باشیم، به شدت امنیت رو هم افزایش میده.
At the same time, the security would be much higher because in contrast with POA bridges, which have like 5 validators, we can have hundreds of validators like supervisors. So it's going to be much more secure.
فکر میکنم این یکی از بهترین سولوشن‌ها باشه که در حال حاضر میشه استفاده کرد به نسبت گزینه‌ای که الان موجود هست.
So Mahdi says compared to other current solutions that are available, this must be one of the cheapest and also most secure methods that we can have.
و از یه طرف چون خیلی ساده هست منطقش و احتمالا ایمپلمنتیشنش هم خیلی ساده باشه، از نظر همین که کامپلکسیتی نداره، امنیتش رو، یعنی احتمال خطا و از اون طرف احتمال خطا رو توش کاهش میده و امنیتش رو افزایش میده.
At the same time, it is much simpler and it doesn't have so many complications. So this makes it away from the failure potentials. So the more simple it is easier to implement. There are fewer complexities to make errors in. So this makes it more secure as well.
Yeah, that's great.
I think
so
right
it's
now,
really it's really great.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I personally have been in touch with Mahdi and learning about IDChain, but right now I know much more in this like 15 minutes. I know much more than before.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, I love that there is innovation happening with the bridges. I know that POA is also they've been innovating with the bridges too, and so I hope that we can work with them and that we can make better bridges for a lot of these different Ethereum-based chains. And yeah, it sounds great. And I think we're getting close. Are there any more questions? We can probably take one more question, right, Paslar? Does that sound right?
Sure. Yes. We have 4 more minutes. So I'm interested, and we have time. If anyone has any questions, we want to talk about one more question.
So I was wondering how tight is the relation between BrightID and IDChain? So does each part really need the other part, or How are
Yeah.
they depending on each other?
Great question. So BrightID just needs some way for the BrightID nodes to agree on the timing of operations, what order they come in. There's lots of different ways that it could do it. My first inclination was to use some other permissions, like leader-based consensus protocol, like some that I was familiar with in my previous work that I've done. But we, like I said, we used an Ethereum-based blockchain because our developers were familiar with that. We could move to, I mean, it could run, the nodes could do what they need to do on, they could do it on any number of blockchains, any number of different technologies. But I think that being philosophically aligned with the underlying technology is good, and also then costs. So we would have been happy to do it on Ethereum mainnet had it been cost effective, but it wasn't. And so we look at side chains and look at, it's a trade-off between making sure the philosophy is correct and also making sure that that it's price effective. But most of these other side chains, they've figured out how to make it really cost effective. So they all do a good job of that. So we just want to make sure that whatever blockchain we're using is, I guess, fair for BrightID users. But I think that most of them are. So we could, we could migrate to another one. Would that mean that IDChain would shut down if BrightID left and, I don't know, started running on, I don't even know what chain it would be, but let's say that they started running on like the Optimism network or something like that, then would that mean that IDChain would no longer exist? No, it would still exist. It could still use BrightID and it's still a blockchain. So they're pretty independent of each other, I would say. Yeah, and Mahdi has something to say about that.
من می‌خواستم این نکته اضافه کنم، اونم این که برایتدی به عنوان یک دیسنترالایز اپلیکیشن مثل همه دیسنترالایز اپلیکیشن ها نیاز داره که یک بستری داشته باشه برای کانسنسسش که ارزون باشه و ضمانتی وجود داشته باشه که همیشه ارزان خواهد بود برای یوزراش و فیاش به یوزراش بار نمیشه.
Mahdi says that IDChain, like any other blockchain or L2, needs, the BrightID needs a platform to reach consensus. And that's why it is using the IDChain to reach consensus between the nodes.
هر برایتدی به عنوان یک دپ نیاز به یه هم چیز داره. همه دپ ها هم نیاز دارن به یک بستر کانسنسوسی که ارزون باشه و همیشه ارزون خواهد بود. و این
Mahdi is saying BrightID, like any other dApp, they need a platform to reach consensus, a platform that is cheap and stays cheap for a long time. And that's what IDChain is good for.
IDChain بیزینس مدلش به نظر من، حالا فکر میکنم طول میکشه تا IDChain درست فهمیده بشه، اما به نظر من تنها بلاک چینی هست، تنها بستر کانسنسسی هست برای دپ ها که بیزینس مدلش طوری طراحی شده که میتونه ارزون باشه و این ارزون بودن رو ادامه بده در حالی که سکیوریتیش و امنیتش رو از دست نده.
Mahdi says in his mind, IDChain is the only side chain available with a business model that allows it to be cheap, and the business model is in a way that it can stay cheap for a long time. I think, yeah, because all the other side chains, they might be cheap, but the business model is in a way that during time they're going to get more expensive by the day. But IDChain is not like that. And okay, Mahdi, I just want to mention that, in a minute or two, we need to close this call. Because we have a connection party coming up.
تنها نکته که می‌خواستم اضافه کنم در حالی که سکیوریتیش هم از دست نمیده، فکر می‌کنم تنها گزینه و از برایت آیدی کمک میگرفت. فکر می‌کنم خیلی از اپ‌های دیگه هم کم کم به سمت این بستر به خاطر این ویژگی حرکت بکنم.
So he says that at the same time that it's going to stay cheap, it is never going to lose its security because it is using BrightID and hundreds of users as validators. So it's not going to lose its security. It's going to stay cheap for a long time. So Mahdi says he believes there's going to be lots of dApps as soon as they find out about IDChain and understand the IDChain on a certain level. They're going to be more than excited to start using it as their consensus platform. So sure thing. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and this was interesting. I learned a lot, and we're going to start a connection party in Spanish right now with Carlos. There's going to be a connection party in English in about an hour, and I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I'll see you soon next week. Thank you for coming. See you, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.